It wasn't just a normal day when Akitsu were in the forest outside town for practice of her ice powers. She was having practice for nearly 2 hours when suddenly she hears this strange sound, and she hears that a vehicle is approaching. She saw a very strange car approaching in the forest, and suddenly stopped and then transformed. She was very shocked to see a car somehow being transforming it into this strange robot figure. But she hid between some trees just in case to see if what this robot would do. The robot just looked around in the area and then transformed back to a car and then flew away. Akitsu, she normally doesn't even get scared easily, but this was something puzzled. She was a bit high alert, but she continued to train for another half hour or so, but always have her ears open just to listen to if this car or this robot would approach even again. But then it didn't happen. After that she had been trained finished though, she went back in town where she ran into some other friends like Matsu, and she explained this strange car that she ran into, or at least the scene. And it was Matsu then asked, what about this car? She has seen hundreds of cars in town, but this was very unusual. She said, you won't even believe if I told you. And then she did tell that this car changed from a car to a robot and back. She was expecting that Matsu would laugh, but Matsu looked really shocked. She said, she said that she was probably the only one who she thought she was the only one who seen a car like that insane description to be transforming from a car to robot and back. Apparently, Matsu saw this about a week earlier, just in town, near some old factories buildings or something, or old warehouses. She did first believe that she was hustling it, and she hadn't even seen the car since. And Akitsu, though, she couldn't even expect it to even any of this was even possible. She even asked Matsu if she has ever heard about any government project or anything like this. But she said no. But according to her, though, this robot seems to be quite aware about the surroundings, and it even heard it speak in English, like it said, huh, no Autobots, no traffic light signals here. And then she didn't know what even understood what it meant, so she searched the word Autobot, but nothing came up online. Though that she didn't pay much attention to it since she hadn't even seen a car since. This past week later though, Akitsu haven't even thought much about this encounter or at least this view of this car. But when she was walking around on the streets, she noticed a strange car in the distance. And it was actually the very same as she saw earlier, a week earlier. But she didn't express any scared or worried, but she pretended that like if everything was normal. She walked past the car normally and didn't even look at it. But suddenly the car started and drove away and turned around and drove past her and disappeared. Normally she wouldn't have been much this high alert, but you were on high alert every single time when she saw or even has even heard this car. She didn't expect it to find out more about this car though, because she thought maybe the car would leave town soon and everything would back to normal. And in fact, she didn't see the car for the next month. In fact, she thought maybe that everything was back to normal then. But after the month of being passed, she wasn't back in the force for normal training as she normally do. But this time she saw the same car driving on the small road path, the dirt road as before. But this time, she didn't hide behind the trees. In fact, she looked right at it when it transformed. It turned out this robot saw her, but he didn't react. At first, he pointed a weapon against her, and then she made some eyes appeared. That surprised him, and he dropped it. He lowered his gun and said, "Whoa, don't hurt me. I don't want harm." But she didn't lower her eyes at all. She asked him determinedly, like, who is he and what is he doing? Is he stalking her or something? But it wasn't like that. He explained his name is Sandstorm, and he has been trying to looking for any of his friends. And she asked, "Is this one of those Autobots I heard? You know about them?" But she shook her head and said that only a friend of hers actually saw him talking to himself, that no Autobots in town and no signal. That was something explained to him, so he then walked up to her, but she said, "Stop, or I will attack you." But then he suddenly said, "I will explain everything." So she lowered her eyes powers for a moment, and he started explaining to her. It turned out that he was an alien from deep space, from another planet called Cybertron. At first she didn't believe it, but then she realized she's an alien. And she told him that, which surprised him a bit, which then is that would explain the powers, since normal humans don't even have any superpowers, if I were aware about. But even after all this, they spent more time talking more about their difference, like where he's from and how he ended up in this particular world. At least he said that he was from a different world, that he came to Earth millions of years ago and had a fight against an enemy of similar of his kind by the name Decepticons. Decepticons and the Autobots have been a fight for so long time, so but about something about his mission, that also when he mentioned that he believed that he had been somehow transported to a different Earth, and she explained what he mean different Earth. This was a bit hard to explain to her, but he tried it as best as he could. After that, he explained to her. She was very surprised that all these details seemed to be very much very ending up. First, she didn't believe any of this about him. She believed that he could not be an alien, that he was all made this up, that he was on secret government project as had escaped. But he managed to convince her that he isn't on some Earth government project. He is in fact an alien. And he did ask her about her powers. She explained that most of her kind on Earth, at least in the city, has their different powers. Some may not have superpowers, but some of them are skilled in different weaponry. Like one in sword, another in some whip. And that is very interesting to him though. But there was something about all of this. He didn't expect to have been interested in this particular young woman. At least in a more as a friendly term. But before he left, he told her if she wanted to meet him again, he can find him in this old factory outside town. And he just drove away, and that was basically the encounter she had with him at for the time being. But she didn't mention any about this encounter to her friends because they were probably not even believe her. Even though only Matsu probably would only one who would have accepted and even understanding this. So she even then explained to Lily's Matsu about all of this. At least what she remembers from her encounter with Sandstorm. And the surprise Matsu did in fact believe her. So she even asked Akitsu if it was possible if she could go with her to see this so-called sandstorm. And Akitsu said yes. So the next couple of days they actually went to this old factory. They saw that Sandstorm was just doing some training or something, but when he saw her and a different person behind her, he felt that he had been betrayed, but she quickly said this is a friend that had seen her and seen him. So he was relaxed. And suddenly, Matsu and Akitsu were talking to him, but then Matsu just closed her eyes and somehow connected with Sandstorm in his electronic mind. And he was very interested, surprised that she was able to enter his mind like that by telepathic way. And from this, she could actually somehow read some of his old memories. And she could confirm to Akitsu this is an alien and that he had been telling her all the truth all along. In all this meeting, though, so far, Matsu was really interested to learn more about him, but shortly after the meeting with him, Matsu returned back to town, or the city, when Akitsu remained. They were still talking about different things that was happened on Earth, at least more about her kind and more about his kind and different things. But one day, when Matsu and Akitsu were in town, they heard this big sound, and it was in fact a very loud sound. And they saw this building had collapsed, and where people were trapped inside. And the firefighters tried to save them, but they couldn't get inside because the risk of it being collapsing. Akitsu quickly told Matsu to reach out to Sandstorm if he could be able to help them, even if it means exposing him to the Republic. But that didn't mean a second for him. When Matsu was able to reach out to him, he actually then spent a second. He left the factory right away in town, and people and bystanders saw this strange car approaching and transformed, and he managed to help the people who were trapped inside and even help the firefighters and others. And after everyone was out, everyone stared at this strange, huge robot. The bystanders then suddenly start cheering, and even the people who had he saved start cheering, and they thanked him for saving their lives. Even some of the people were a little bit scared about him, but at the same time, they weren't. After that, he had become like a local hero in town. Then a lot of other friends to Matsu and Akitsu find out that they have been talking to this robot in secret. They weren't even angry or anything, they were just shocked. But they were about Akitsu though. Akitsu. She had spent so much time with Sandstorm after all of this happened. But there was something about him that made her realize that he was very calm, always helped around. After this, that he had saved people from the collapsed building, he made sure that other buildings in town were safe, and he even had helped the mayor of town to say that he was willing to help to restore some of the buildings that has collapsed or maybe make sure they are safe. But about something about his mind though. After this, people started to ask him questions about where he's from, if there is any others about his kind on Earth, or if he's going to stay in town as local hero, like something like questions. Even after he became so public known, he tried to spend a little more time with Akitsu, but unfortunately it wasn't that easy. Since every time when he wanted to see her, A lot of people recognized him immediately and wanted to talk to him, ask him some questions, or at least get to talk to him or something like that. At first, he actually very liked this, but after some time, it gets a little bit annoying to him. But he even mentioned to in an interview that somewhere during the interview, so, well, the programmer actually asked if there was someone on Earth that he had some sort of affection to, or some he really likes. He tried to avoid the question, but the person asked again, and he said they were in fact a girl or young woman that he had some feelings for. But he even said this probably that she doesn't even feel the same thing back to him. And the person asked if there was some if this young woman is local, and he said yes. But he refused to reveal the name of her or how she looked like because of her privacy. But it wouldn't take long for people to realize to figure out that maybe it was Akitsu or Matsu. When people start talking about maybe it was Matsu, because he spent some time with her in the past and after he saved the people. But the board quickly dismissed these rumors that they had been dating, because Matsu was only his friend. Even they shared some similar common interests, but he wasn't interested in her the same way though. But then, it didn't take long for the people in town to realize Akitsu was the one that he had an affection for. And he didn't even deny that. That surprised most people that he actually confessed that he had a love for Akitsu. Even though he even said during that when he said, yes, I am in love with her, but I do respect her wishes if she doesn't have the same feelings towards me. Which later she told him that in fact she did like him more as a friend. Even it took her about almost past 2 months to realize her true feelings for him. They tried to keep dating though, even the public were around them, but they spent a lot of time in his restored factory as their dating place. At the factory where they were watching movies or just trading against each other, but they actually did enjoy each other's company. Then some time later on though, some of Akitsu's friends had asked her if she was going to marry Sandstorm, but it was a joke. But she didn't even answer that. She either confirmed or denied that she probably had liked to be married with them. But she even said that it's probably not even possible because that he is a robot and she is an alien herself. Even though they're both aliens, but they probably would not be anyone wouldn't be willing to perform the wedding ceremony. But Matsu, she had in secret had asked around some of the local churches or local temples if there was anyone who was willing to perform a wedding ceremony between Sandstorm and Akitsu. And she did find at least one priest that was willing to do so. And she mentioned this to Sandstorm. Even at first, he did not want to do this because he didn't want to force Akitsu to get married with him because they are deeply in love. But when he asked her if it was possible to get married if she wanted to do that, so, and she said in fact said yes, but they were about something like that. She didn't even ask why he asked so. He was just curious. That's all, he said. Only about some short time after, he actually did propose to her, but she said that she needed some time to think for an answer. And only a day later, she said yes. Matsu had actually then told Akitsu about this priest, and of course they decided to have a traditional Japanese wedding. And it was a very unique wedding, though, since it was very unique. A robot with an alien girl or young woman. But people came a long ways to see this wedding to happen. They even took a road trip together for as a honeymoon. But after they came back to town, though, they went back to their normal works. Sandstorm worked for the city to make sure that buildings are safe, the streets are also safe. And he became sort of like a safe inspector for the city. And Akitsu started working as she normally did. But later, after they have been married for about 4 years, they have been talked about maybe get starting a family. Even they were probably hadn't been talking about adopting children. So since they were a local orphanage, they decided maybe to adopt some of them from some children from there. And they found two daughters, twins, by the name Riko and Sakura. Sakura was a very energetic kid when she was at her young age. Both were actually 10 years old, but they both loved their parents. After hearing so much stories about the local heroes, they could not even been happier and so excited to have so heroes as parents. But they both were so excited. But they even loved their parents so deeply. And even though Sandstorm had never expected to be a father and especially married, but his love for Akitsu only grew stronger for each single day. A lot of people in town had asked him if he did marry her because just he wanted to do or he actually loved her. But he said he did love her deeply, more than anything. He would go to beyond the world, beyond anything to just to save her from any harm. Akitsu, she was really happy to have Sandstorm in her life. A lot of things could have been wrong because who knows? They didn't expect it. They didn't expect it to have fallen in love with each other. Even they met under strange circumstances, but their love for each other remained strong. And that's how Sandstorm and Akitsu, for the true love, got a family together. The end.